Hello everyone and welcome back to another episode of the Smart Money Show. My name is Naman Akhtar and as usual, I'm joined by Ali Suleiman. How are things?
I'm good, bro. It's been a very long time since we've been sat on camera together, especially in the same angle, in a new in-person episode and a new in-person venue, a bonus episode as well. But before we get into who we're joined by, how are things with you?
All good, of course. It's nice to be back in London, especially with the holidays and going up to Notts during term time. But just ready to be back here. And of course, we'll be filming an episode after a long while, so that's nice as well. And many of our viewers, you must have seen that we kind of reduced the frequency of our episodes, and the reason to that was that we wanted to stay on impact and see where the episodes we're bringing in are continuing on that impact as well. So, and I think the guests we have today as well, they're not professionals just yet, but they will 100% deliver that impact, 100%.
Absolutely, that is testament to that. And I'm glad you mentioned the University of Nottingham, which is where you study, because before we introduce our guests, we are very much excited to announce our partnership with the University of Nottingham's Economics and Finance Society for their 2026 annual conference. So as part of this exclusive collaboration, we've got exclusive access to a range of professional speakers from elite financial institutions. And on the day of the conference, we'll be setting up a studio to record interviews with speakers and senior professionals in attendance. So it really is a great opportunity to bring students closer to the people and conversations that do shape the industry, similar to the podcast conversations that we have. And we're very much looking forward to sharing that content with you over the coming months. But today, who are we joined by? Well, we're joined by two students who are currently leading NEFS, the two co-presidents. So first of all, we're joined by Haaris Khan. He's a co-president of the Nottingham Economics and Finance Society, or NEFS, and an incoming Industrial Placement Analyst at Lazard in their investment banking division in London. Haaris has gained experience across global markets and banking through roles at Seaport Global, Winterflood Securities, Bank Muscat, and in private equity, alongside wider exposure through healthcare placements within the NHS and the New Knife Clinic. We're also joined by Misgana Berhane, co-president of NEFS and an incoming equity research summer analyst at Jefferies. Misgana has completed spring weeks at Jefferies, Citi, and Scotiabank, alongside internships at Octopus Energy and Grosvenor, where she developed strong commercial and analytical experience across energy and real estate. So a very long and deserved intro. But in this episode, we're going to talk through their individual career journeys, how they think about building experience early on, and then spend time unpacking NEFS and the NEFS Conference, of course, why it's become such a big fixture in the student finance calendar, and also why it's worth really paying attention to. So without further ado, I'm very excited to welcome our guests. Haaris, Misgana, how are we today?
Doing great. Thank you for having us on. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, no, I really appreciate your time as well. And it's nice to meet you guys finally.
Yeah, amazing. I mean, I know we've been liaising via WhatsApp group chats and by calls, but it's always great to meet in person. And that's why we try and stray away from online episodes now, right, as well?
Yeah, no, it's that impact is really there, and the whole conversation. But of course, let's get right into it then. Of course, now normally what we do is we kind of kick things off by asking, why finance? Taking those steps back. So, Haaris, I'll start with you then. Why did you pick finance? Why did you want to study or pursue this career?
Sure. So I think why finance really. I came to university not really know what I wanted to do. I did economics at A levels. I found it quite interesting, and then I thought, what do I want to do with that? So then at university, being part of the finance society, then also having this kind of network around me, that kind of gave me a better understanding of the finance industry in general. I always knew from younger, I worked at Clark's or inside the NHS. I love to work with people. I love to connect with people on a real deeper level. I think finance is a space you can do that, but also you're influencing the whole global landscape with finance. So you're working with people on the larger scale. Then there's no bigger stage than finance, let's be honest, right? So I think for me, that's why I wanted to be a finance, because really it's a people business. That's what it is.
100%. And then of course yourself, Misgana.
For me, it was kind of the balance between problem solving, but also the client-facing aspect, similar to Haaris, where I really liked solving problems and knowing that I can help out in some way, whether that be a business or with people. But then also just the client-facing aspect. I liked working with people. Before university, I was a barista. And so just the whole aspect of having these relationships and them being long-term, then solving their problems, and I guess helping things on a wider scale, like Haaris said again, is something that really drew me into finance. And then specifically into markets, is because I love what's going on in terms of the economy and also commercial awareness and things happening in the news. I always kept up with it, knowing that there's a direct role where I can see what's happening in the news and then be some sort of impact to a business or client is what drew me into finance.
Yeah, for sure. I'm glad we've all got the retail experience around the table because it really does help a lot. Genuinely, people don't, I mean, everyone says, oh, I've got no experience. You do, everyone does. But it does help a lot. I mean, I'm a receptionist. I mean, you've had your fair share of retail experience as well. And it really does help, and subconsciously as well. It's talking to people from all walks of life. So would you guys agree that that's
No,
helped?
I fully agree. I mean, like, I remember working in Clark's, like, it was like only three of us on the floor, and it was like back to school rush. So you can imagine you've got like 100 people coming through the door, and it's a really hot and sweaty day. No, but it was really good experience, and like I enjoyed it because I really bonded with my colleagues, and I still managed to reconnect with the customer as well, and that's what I enjoy. Like, I love, like, I'm selling shoes, but we're selling an experience at the end of the day, right?
Yeah.
That's what we're doing in finance at the end of the day.
Yeah, absolutely. So I know you both have an understanding of the finance industry now, but I'm curious to, and I know our viewers will be as well, what were your initial perceptions of the finance industry, you know, before you gained all those experiences I spoke about in the industry and in the intro as well? And how did those perceptions change over time? Maybe some misconceptions that got beaten. Misgana, do you want us to kick that off?
I think for me, the finance industry was either two things, investment banking or consulting. And of course, those two things are some of the largest parts of what finance is, though that's all I knew existed. And then with that, I thought, okay, they're long hours and you're doing tiresome projects for so many months. That was literally all I knew. And then actually was through NEFS, but also through the conference, where I knew that there were different panels about different sorts of areas in finance, and I realised how diverse finance is. And that's when I kind of realised, okay, actually, it's not just banking or consulting. Within that, there's sales and trading, there's research, there's credit risk, things like that. So yeah, that was kind of my perception at the start.
We spoke to a guest that said there's a role in finance for everyone if you're looking hard enough, right? Would you kind of echo that as well?
No, I agree. Like, finance is not just M&A. It's not just doing research. There's so much to do. There's consulting, or you can go into more of a client investor relations kind of role, or if you're more technical or like have a more computer science background and go into like the software development, the quant side. Really, there is a role for anyone in any walk of life, and that's why finance is so diverse. So there are people with like background degrees in STEM, in economics, in history, and because you want a real wide range of thinkers, and that's why it's so diverse.
Yeah, and even picking out, IB itself, like it's not just strictly, econ students they're hiring, right? It's like they hire so many different people, especially, when it gets into more specifics. Like I've heard, engineers, doctors. It's like it's more on you personally rather than the course you study. And then I guess kind of moving on from that, then it would be, studying the courses that you do at university. How's that kind of shaped the perspective, So of course A-levels is one thing, but then studying anything at uni is something else. So what's your 2 cents on that?
I think for me, I do economics and politics, my background. So that I think that what politics gives me is that background and reasoning behind macroeconomics. Like, it's so interlinked. Like, the world of politics itself is so interlinked with finance. Like, we don't realize it. Well, now we do with like Trump and tweets, for example, right? But everything that happens in politics and policy influences the bond market, or like regulations influence M&A. It is so intertwined, and that's why I love so much about politics. Is there's that intertwinedness within finance, and learning the background and depth of that is what I enjoy doing.
Yeah, and I study geography, so it's not really directly linked to finance, though we do have modules in like economics, but also politics. But I think one way that's actually helped me is through things in ESG, so a lot of companies do now start investing in that. But also, when it comes to things such as weather, knowing what's happening in that actually impacts markets quite a bit, and also how companies invest or what they forecast investing to be. So I think geography has helped me understand that finance isn't just directly linked to like money or numbers, but really about our environment, and also how wide it is. So geography is a really diverse subject. There's so many different areas that you can focus in, and knowing that these things do exist. I think one thing about your career or like finance in general is that one sort of hurdle you should cross over is knowing that something exists, because then from that you can know what to look into further. So with geography, I realised that certain things do exist, and I was like, okay, let me look into that a bit more. So that's how it kind of helped me out.
No, very interesting. And it's just a follow on from that. How do you? I think there's a lot of stigma about coming from non-finance degrees. I bet you've heard that. You personally, how did you deal with that when you were first entering, when you first started university, maybe first thinking about the industry? Do you ever feel maybe, not imposter syndrome, but a little bit about, I don't come from a finance degree, I'm going to have to do that extra bit of work to really break in and understand the industry?
Yeah, I think for sure with me, there were a lot of people on my Springs who did non-finance degrees, but they often were STEM students. So it was often a lot of econ students and then maths or like engineering students, not often politics, history, geography. So with that, when speaking to students, they were like, oh, how comes you're here or how comes you enjoy this? It's like, in the same way you do, I don't really know like what else to say. Like I heard about it, I saw it on some sort of application link, I applied as well. But often I was actually asked in interviews why geography. So they don't really ask why finance, but why geography. And the reason I always said was because I just enjoy it. And I know that with careers such as banking, finance, consulting, you don't need to actually do that subject. Everyone who does economics, who does finance as a degree, they also need to do their research as well into the company, into current affairs. And that's the same thing I need to do as well. So there's not really a leverage that I would say they have to. So that's my answer always, is because I enjoy the subject and I know that in the same way they read the news, I read the news, I need to research the company, so do they. So that's really
simple as that.
Simple
Just
as that,
showcasing your passion does a lot of the work, a lot of the time as well. But was there, I mean, from talking on your behalf as well, Naman, when we thought of finance, we thought of it, I mean, coming from our backgrounds as well, we thought of it as this lofty sort of untouchable almost place, especially like through the lens of cinema. We talk about it all the time. It feels a little bit lofty. But what, first of all, curious to hear if that was a similar sort of feeling for you guys, but also was there a particular moment or experience that made finance feel like a realistic career option for you? Do you remember that sort of, maybe that light switch moment? Do you want to take that, Haaris?
Yeah, so I think for me, like we've all seen the movies. So we have our perception of what does finance and like high finance role, like what on earth does an investment banker actually do, right? Yeah. So I remember in my secondary school, my last year, we had one of the directors in ECM at Citibank. Wow. He came and did a talk at my school, and that really kind of demystified a lot of it, right? So he's studied at my school, Latin Grammar, and then he's gone to LSE and he's gone to go now work in the investment bank, but not in M&A. He's working in ECM. So even understanding what is an IPO, like what is equity, like having that kind of understanding in the first place. It really helped me to demystify. That's why I always advocate for speaking to as many people as possible as early on, right? Even if someone like has done internships there, they understand the ins and outs of a company rather than me, a student who is looking at it from afar, thinking like the lights look pretty in Canary Wharf.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's how we started, right? Misgana, was that similar to yourself?
Yeah, it was actually literally basically exactly the same. Someone who went to my sixth form, I spoke to them because they also were working in investment banking. And at that time, I didn't really have any sort of interest in finance, to be honest. But just speaking to them, knowing that they were at one point in my same position. But then also through insight days as well. So during my first year, I went to quite a few insight days. And I really would recommend that because you speak to people in different divisions of the bank and you just... There's a big information deficit, I think, with people not knowing what something is or how it actually is like. So speaking to people, getting to know what it is and knowing that they were in the same position as you is something that really helped me out.
100%. I think that kind of like links on to, why we started this podcast, because right at the start, our first few episodes, I mean, we had it in mind that, okay, our genesis is kind of, okay, we're going to help people break into finance, we're going to, demystify where we can. But then at the start, it was just me and him, doing some research. And then a few episodes in, we realised, okay, no one really cares about what two random students are saying. So we started bringing on professionals or students like yourself who are like actually, they're
accomplished,
accomplished, and they're much more oriented towards more specific career paths. And then I think then that way, that mode of demystification, mimicking a coffee chat, I think that's where the most impact could be for early on students, especially sixth formers as well. But I guess one question I want to ask, and I think that will kind of directly link on to the next section of the episode as well, is internships and applications. I guess that's one main thing. And so how early on did you guys start, and what's your thoughts on that? I'll start with you, Misgana.
So I actually, even though I did apply to a lot of Springs, because I went into university thinking I wanted to go into consulting, and a lot of Springs weren't actually for consulting, I kind of just really brushed over a lot of Springs that were open during September, October time. And then it was during mid-October, that's when it actually went like full on, which I don't recommend because I don't recommend that because I was catching up with how much I actually missed because a lot of Springs, some open in July, some open in August. So I started around mid-October, applied to everything, though it's because at the start I thought I was only going into consulting, which is something I decided later on not to do.
I think for me, I came to university not knowing what on earth a spring week was. Like in my head, my perception of it is like very similar to an insight day. Is nothing really tangible comes from it. Like now in hindsight, looking back, I'd rather applied early on. I remember I was applying to the investment banking into spring weeks, but some people already had offers for the same program, so it didn't really work out, right? So for me, is I started applying maybe December, January, and I landed in some places out in the summer, so Winterflood and Seaport Global, which really helped my understanding of, like, that's my first real corporate, London kind of finance experience.
It's a culture shock,
it's a huge culture shock. Like, you don't really understand what the world of finance means until you're actually there for the first time, right? Until you sit on the seat or you sit on the trading floor, you don't really understand what it means and like kind of impact that you can have.
Yeah, for sure, absolutely. And I'm very glad what you said there, Misgana, which was about, you spoke about how you regret just focusing on the consulting ones, right? And I'm going to reinforce that for our viewers and listeners, because a lot of students, including myself, I've done it, I know you did it, Naman, in your first year, they pigeonhole themselves to just what they want. And they make the decision that I'm not going to apply before they've applied, right? Instead, I feel, and what someone, just apply anyway and then decide once you've got the offer. Because then it's so much easier to do. Instead, you're just cutting off 50% of the competition. I did the same thing for spring weeks, and it was very, I only got 2, and they were very, very lucky to get them, right? And one was through a referral, but I feel like I could have got more if I didn't pigeonhole myself. So I'm very glad he stated that. But I'm glad that Naman asked that question, because we're going to move on to the second section, which is building that actual experience and navigating those early careers. So Haaris, I'm going to kick off with yourself. So you've had exposure across markets, banking, private equity, even a little bit of healthcare as well. So it's a lot. How did you decide where to focus, whether it's the different industries? How do you decide where to focus at these different stages of these experiences?
Yeah, I think so. The first thing first is to spend time in the NHS, right? Yeah. That kind of really solidified my decision of maybe medicine's not for me. Maybe the traditional Asian pathway, but medicine's not for me. But I still love to talk to the patient every day. Like I spend time drawing someone's blood tests, that wasn't the fun part, but I actually enjoyed speaking to people, their background, where they're from, and how they're really finding the environment they're in, right? It was in psychiatry. Yeah. So I enjoyed that part. Then going into pre-university, spending time at a family office, that's very much deal orientated. Yeah. But in a family office, it's quite small, so it's very different to working in a big investment bank. Like, I worked on a deal with an investment bank in Egypt. It's a lot different, and it's a lot wide experience to your first deal process. I was in more the accounting side, but it's still experience to build up. Mm-hmm. And then after that, last year in the global markets divisions, what I really understand was maybe sales and trading isn't for me, but what I took away from that is I understand spending time deep research on companies. Like, I spent time researching what happens when the Strait of Hormuz closed last year, for example. What does that actually mean for the market? Yeah. What does that mean for bonds or the debt market? So whereas I build a range of experience through finance or outside of finance, you kind of pick and choose what do you actually enjoy. So like you mentioned before, apply to everything and figure out what from that experience, even if let's say you land a spring week in investment banking, but IB is not for you, you might like the fact that if you work in ECM, maybe equity or the trading floor for you. So you take away experiences and you build upon, actually, I like this part, I like this part. Now I'm going to go apply next year or apply for a grad scheme in this specific niche. Yeah. I'm going to build up a network in this niche, and then I'm going to, become really well versed.
But also, if an experience tells you that it's not for you, that's also a value,
hugely important, right?
Because you probably won't get another opportunity to get a week in IB and understand you don't like it. Instead of having it as a goal, understanding you don't like it is also a very valuable experience, right, Noah?
Yeah, 100%. I think, we mentioned it a lot on the podcast as well, but there's this one experience of me and Ali, we both applied to this work experience program. It's at one of the larger banks, and we both got it, and then we both didn't go to it because we thought that it wasn't going to be of value. And of course, now looking back, we're like, oh, okay, we should have done that. It's one of the biggest regrets, and I think that does kind of it's just the wider idea. Like, if we have kind of learned the hard way that any experience or even every experience could bring some value to you. So that's really important. But I guess over to Misgana now. I want to speak about, so you've done your springs as well now, and then you now a bit more, I'm going to make the assumption that you're more oriented towards equity research, right? So what was your direction, what caused that, and then what experiences built up to that?
Yeah, so I saw on the same day that Jefferies the spring program opened, and I realised my mistake at the start of the year, which was I was pigeoning to consulting. When I saw equity research open, I actually didn't know what that was at all. And the only programs open for Jefferies was tech, IB, and equity research. I kind of assumed I don't really want to go into IB because I knew about the hours. And then equity research, tech I have literally zero interest in. So equity research, I was like, you know what, I don't know what that is, I'll just apply. And I genuinely just applied, I didn't know what it was. And then I kind of did my research because I had to do a cover letter for it. And then when I got my first round interview, that's when I actually realised, okay, let me do my deeper research. What is this? Where does it fit into the company? What is its function in markets? And then, so my research was decent enough for an interview. I got to the second round. Decent enough for the second round. I got my offer. But then I still stepped into the program not really knowing what it was. And it's because I had never worked in a bank before, so I just didn't know what it was. But then through the program, I realised how interesting it was and how much of a fit it was for me personally as well. I really enjoy commercial awareness, what's happening in the markets. So knowing that that's something interesting for me, which is why I took on the program. And so, yeah, that's kind of how I fell into it.
No, absolutely. Amazing. And I'm glad, again, we've kicked off the section, but I want to talk about the flip side of applications. I mean, you guys have both got amazing experiences and a number of them, but there's also rejection that comes with that. And I want to talk about, I mean, it's funny, but for a lot of people, it's the be all and end all. I mean, the first rejection for me and for a lot of my friends and stuff is it hurts, especially when it's like, so a big rejection that impacted me was I did the UBS spring, didn't get the conversion to the summer. I thought it was like gold, and I thought I didn't even apply to summers until I heard back from them. I thought I was going to get it, and then not getting it. Naman, you can attest to this. I was gutted. It took me a while to get back on the bandwagon of applications. So how did you both learn from rejection early on? How did it? Was there ever a big one? Was there ever a moment where you're like, right, I need to change the way I apply? Haaris, I'll start with you, and then I'll go to you, Misgana.
No, I mean, rejection is ever prevalent. Like, I'm sure I'll wake up tomorrow with another rejection email, surely, right? Like, I remember last year in the spring, especially when I applied to Springs, there was one morning I woke up and I had 4 emails in a row from like rejection. It's tough. Yeah. It's tough. Like this, trying to land a place anywhere is really tough. So, like you said, apply everywhere. I fully agree with that. Right. I think for me, I changed my approach of, like even like the little things that generic everyone tells you to, but it's so valuable. Like applying with a set cover letter template, or applying with like your CV is changed for each company, or having a network in the companies before you apply there. Those are really huge, and I didn't really like take any notice of that last year. Coming to this year now, I really changed my approach. So I knew that I wanted to go into not really into sales and trading, but into investment banking, or go into like the buy side even, right? So that's kind of the backup option. So I applied to all of the roles, and then lo and behold, rejections start rolling in. They start rolling in, and then I landed a final round interview at UBS, like you mentioned. And I thought, I had a network there. I was really well versed. And lo and behold, when it comes to it, I didn't get the offer. I failed, and that really hurt, because I thought that's the one I really wanted. Like, it almost went to my head that I'd be at UBS next year on a placement. So then rolling around, I had to figure out what did I do wrong for UBS, and then ultimately I learned that, you know, maybe I wasn't presenting right, maybe I wasn't learning fast enough, and then I used those same skills in my assessment center at Lazard, and ultimately I landed the offer. Like, rejection will keep on happening. Like, I'll keep getting rejections until the end of the year from when I applied in like September, for example. But landing one role, or landing even a spring week, or even, you know, an inside day, just building up that bank of experience, and there's always a next cycle, right? There's always a next cycle. There's always a new program. There's a placements. There's off cycles. There's so much you can do, and it's not just like a summer internship. So really apply to everything. I think, even attend events, like attending like a networking lunch. You build up that kind of network. You build up that experience of understanding what happens within the company, and then using that to go from there. Maybe ask him, or do you know someone else in your team, or is there someone in HR you can refer me to? So build that kind of network, and then that's how you land a place at a firm ultimately.
No, there was some gold there. And Misgana, you have successfully converted. We were just talking about how we didn't, but you successfully converted Jefferies spring to summer. First of all, how did that feel? But second of all, did you ever have any similar sort of questions, those rejection feelings? And were you nervous about maybe the conversion not working out? And how did that play with your mindset?
Yeah, I definitely was nervous about the conversion because I saw the people in my cohort and looking at their experiences. I mean, before the spring, I was kind of looking, okay, who else is going to be on the spring? And they had like amazing LinkedIn. Genuinely, I was like, okay, I don't know why they chose me. And then when I met them, they're all really nice as well. And I was just like, oh, you know what, I'll just be here just to get to know what this is. And I don't know, this is not for me. And then there were some technical things on the spring. So we had to do some sort of simulation of a DCF. There was a presentation and we had to do evaluation of a certain company, and my technicals at the time were really bad actually. I didn't do enough preparation, and this is one thing I'll definitely say is before the spring, speak to people who did it last year to know what you need to know and what you need to brush up on. I didn't do that enough, so when I came to my spring, my technicals weren't brushed up, so I kind of banked on my understanding of my commercial awareness, and that's what really helped me out in my interviews. So I'd say definitely bank on what you're good at. So there were people who were really good at their technicals, they didn't convert it because they just kind of relied on that. Whereas me, I tried to bank on what I was good at, but also try my hardest at what I wasn't good on. So that's what I'd say helped me convert my spring to a summer.
Yeah, no, 100%. And especially, I think when it comes to technicals as well, it's like they can be taught to an extent as well, easily. But then it's if you do focus and present yourself as a wider candidate, I think that's what something they'd focus on more. Because, I mean, even these applications, I know the conversation we were having earlier before we started filming, it was like, so a firm gets so many applications now, okay, out of them, let's say they've got 1,000 strong applications. Now, all these people, they probably, like, on a technical level, they could do the role right. Yeah. So it's interesting to see how like, of course, there will be, you know, aspects and characteristics of individuals that push them beyond, and I hope you agree to that as well. Of course, now we're going to start speaking more directly about NEFS, and of course, you both are the co-presidents of the society. And now, one of the reasons why I went to NOTS as well is because of the society was really strong. So what's your opinion on the role like a society like NEFS can play on, you know, someone's career aspirations? So, Misgana, do you want to kick things off there? Or?
I would definitely say one thing is the network. So the people that you meet in the society, I mean, it's of course a really large society with thousands of people. The people who went before you, you could speak to them, ask as many questions as possible, because as a student, speaking to another student is way more easier than speaking to like an associate or a VP. So really the network is the one thing, but also the technical training and the sort of leverage you get from being part of divisions. So I was part of a few divisions last year, and that taught me what I really liked, what I didn't like about finance, and made me kind of understand something in a more deeper level, but it really helped me out in my interviews. So interviewers know, or recruitment know about these divisions that are in these societies, knowing that they're selective, knowing that you have training every single week. It really helped me out when I kind of didn't really have a lot of direct finance experience. That helped me pivot and show them that not only do I have sort of transferable skills, but I also have skills that are directly applicable to this role.
Yeah, for sure. Would you agree?
No, I totally agree. Like, so I was also part of a few divisions, and one that was really important was our investment fund. Yeah. So with that, I was part of the financial division, and I learned so much, not just from my fund team, like my fund manager, but also I understand what commercial awareness means. Like beforehand, I'd just read the news or listen to a podcast, or I'd watch some like Bloomberg on like YouTube, for example, right? But now understanding, I need to understand what happens in the financial sector, and that's going to impact the decisions on investments that I pitch. So then having a deeper understanding of a certain sector, that really made me stand out in interviews. So I then talk about one company I pitched was SocGen, and they were really impressed because like that was the best performing financial stock of the past year, right? So you're building up real financial experience at university. So the role that societies play in terms of what you're learning and what you're gaining from that, like I said, mentorship and that kind of connectivity you have is huge. But what you're learning actually hands-on is just as important, and it can translate into real experience after.
Yeah, for sure. Couldn't agree more. Absolutely. And I went to Naman invited me to the NEFS hustings, and I realised, I speak about it all the time, but I realised just how, first of all, how huge the society is. Second of all, how integral it is to student life at Nottingham. And I think thirdly, just how serious students take it, which I think is really important. It shows just how important it is to them personally as well. And Naman can't stop talking about NEFS. I get quite jealous, actually, despite going to uni in London.
Yeah, no, especially like last year when I was, learning about, okay, what finance really is, and trying to, sharpen up my direction in my career path. It was just event after event, and it's been the same this year as well. It's just event after event from different companies, and that does really give you genuine insight, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Like if you're hearing from professionals directly. So I think, and even taking a step back, that was one of the things that kind of directed me towards Nottingham as well. It's because it's a nice culture to be around if you're trying to break into finance, 100%.
Absolutely, and NEFS has got a reputation not just in Nottingham, across the UK, as I said at the top of the episode as well. But you both didn't found NEFS, as you said. You know, NEFS came across. I don't know how long it's been around for. How long has it been around for?
So NEFS was founded in 2012 as merged between two societies, the Economic Society and the Finance Society.
Yeah.
But the actual Economic Society itself was founded in 1983, right?
Whoa,
so there's a huge amount of history behind that, and there's a huge pipeline of students that have been part of the society, and now they're in the industry. Like, there's a massive pipeline. So that's why like the actual, it's not just NEF, but the society culture in Nottingham is amazing. That's what I really love about Nottingham itself, the culture of people really care about the society and they're passionate for it, and they really get involved and be engaged in it, right? That's what I love about Nottingham itself. In terms of NEFS, it's integral in terms of there's so many people that have been part of the society like 5, 10, 15, 20 years ago who still care about it to this day. And that's why it's so unique, because there's this real path proven of people from 30 years ago were part of the Economic Society and now they're in the industry, or people from 5 years ago were part of one of our divisions and now they're in the industry. Like, that's what really differentiates NEFS. There's this proven path to success, and that's why I think so many students like to be involved, because they see what they can learn and ultimately what their potential can be when they get involved.
Well, there you go. So there is significant responsibility with leading up NEFS, right? Which is my question. So you both didn't found it, but you stepped into your co-president roles with significant responsibility. What did that transition look like for you both? I mean, and how much responsibility really is it? Misgana, I'll start with you.
I mean, yeah, it was quite a transition because the workload is quite a lot, and especially with a large society, there's a big amount of pressure knowing that this has been a society for so many years. We don't want to be the people to mess it up at all. Like we can't have that happen. So, I mean, it started off with like renewing sponsorships and then organising events, outreaching to people, even for the conference itself. There's a lot of things that when it comes to rejections, not only from, this is one thing that I realised, that we get rejections from applications, but one thing as well, being part of the society, we've got so many rejections for sponsorships or people who can't come to events, even last minute cancellations or things just always happen all the time. And it's something that I've realised this year. I've not only had just like development from my own work or like applications or career, but personal development as well. This is really character building. And so yeah, that's been the main transition for me.
No, yeah, like I want to jump on. Like I remember at the beginning, it was such a transition, having this much responsibility that you almost don't know what to do with it, right? You have this massive pile of work to get on with for the next year. But in my head, it's only April, but we have until September, October to get started. Yeah. But then coming the summer holidays, I was in Egypt, and I would call Misgana at like 3 a.m. UK time, and we'd be working on a pitch deck to get an email out for the morning, right? When we work all night to get these pitch decks out, like I'm sure we produced 200, 300 at least. Yeah. We've produced so many of these decks to get sponsorship in or get speakers in, and so much planning and logistics go ahead of it, and that's why you learn so much of being in the leadership role. Like I advocate being in a leadership role within any society. So you have responsibility which you don't get elsewhere. So that's why I believe we learned so much, because there's so much to do from the jump, and there's continuing pressure from like not just the summer holidays, but then coming into the year, you have events to run. So your evenings, you have to sacrifice your evenings, but then you also have to make sure speakers are coming in for the next couple of weeks, or is there events pipeline coming in, or what do we do in last minute cancellation? You're almost thinking on your feet 24/7. We wake up, we have 1,000 texts from like the many different people to get involved, but that's what I love so much. We have a great committee of like almost 60 people that we can rely on, and that's huge. Having that kind of support network, not just with the committee, but the huge membership base is huge, and there's responsibility there. But I think Misgana and myself have really enjoyed it so far.
Yeah, and you've kind of stole a bit of my question there. My next question as well, because of course 12 years right now, like a question would be, of course, you've got the society now, you've got applications that you're doing, interviews, whatever, and then you've got your actual academics as well, which I hope you guys are focusing on. So how do you handle that?
To be fair, I do things as it comes, even though sometimes it's not the best thing. But I think one thing I realised is I used to think, oh, you need to be quite balanced with everything. Make sure during the day I can do this, applications, prep, NEFS stuff, this and that. Sometimes that's just not realistic. So I would designate like a certain day would be for a certain thing. Like there will be even a whole week where I haven't done university work, which is, it may not sound good, but it's a thing where I kind of pigeon myself into something, making sure everything else is smooth sailing. I can go back to it when I need to, but for now, this is the main focus, and that's okay. I don't think there's any need for sort of pressure to make sure everything's happening at the same time. It's fine to sort of designate certain periods of time for a certain thing and know that that's okay, I'll get back to it.
Yeah, like definitely, like I know, for example, if I have a massive interview that's coming up, or I have call deadline for tomorrow, I can say to Misgana or the rest of the team, hey, do you guys mind just taking on X, Y, Z for like 1-2 days, and then I'll come back to you guys and I'll be involved from the get-go. And that's why we kind of give and take from each other, and that's why building a strong team, having a strong team around you is hugely important, and people you can rely on. That's why like you said, there's a lot to balance, but balance with people. Try to lean on people around you. That's how I go about it.
Yeah, for sure. And one of the points of this episode, and the reason why we wanted to kick off our collaboration, was we wanted to show the people behind the conference and the society, right? So the leadership skills that you've developed, how much would that actually help when it comes into your professional careers? What have you really learned about leadership management and everything else in between? You said a committee of 60, let alone the thousands and thousands of members. What are some of the key traits you think you'll take into your careers? I mean, you've got placement and the summer coming up. What do you think you're gonna take into it? Do you want to kick that off, Haaris?
Sure, I'll kick that off. I think leadership's important. Being able to manage and work alongside so many different personalities is hugely important coming into the workplace. Yeah. You'll be working with people from backgrounds from across the world, and that's the same thing in the society. People come from across the world to study at Nottingham, and you're going to work with them on a day-to-day or week-to-week basis. That's the same thing you transfer into a working environment, where if you're working in your team, there are people from America, there are people from Europe, from the UK. So how can you really relate and build that teamwork from the get-go? And how can you gel into a team as an intern and really try to make the best impression I can? Yeah. I think what the main thing I really learned though is managing so many competing priorities at the same time. Yeah. So as you can imagine, we're working on many different projects, like such as the conference, but also there's other things on the sidelines. So how do we manage to really put that all together and gel that together but still produce results? And again, working in any space of finance, you're working on so many tight deadlines, long hours. It is stuff skills you build upon at university that makes it slightly easier going into the workplace.
I guess one question to kind of, really wrap things off in this section is that, of course, things don't always go as planned, right? It's happened with our organisation as well. So how do you handle the pressure on that end? Anyone can take that question.
I think it's kind of a thing where you just know you have to do it. Like you just know you have to fix something. You can't get stressed out. You can't sort of say, okay, someone else do it. No, it's your responsibility. Yeah. As a co-president, you need to make sure something happens. So there's been times where there's been a last-minute cancellation, or I know that something just is not going to work out, and you have to be creative. You have to take off the pressure, and you have to just make sure it needs to get done. You can't really get emotional about it. You just have to.
No, it's true. Yeah. At the end of the day, we have a job to do, right? So if you have an event cancellation, what event can we run instead? Or if there are certain guidelines where we can't run the event, or can the event be run virtually? Can we do something creative virtually? Like one event we run with one of our sponsors, EY, they weren't able to come in person, but we were able to host them online. And then we hosted these selected breakout rooms as well, making it more interactive. So it was like 1 or 2 of the consultants, and then only like 6 or 7 of the actual speakers, the actual students, right? Yeah. So how can you be creative, but how can you, like you said, we have a job to do, you just have to get it done somehow. Yeah.
Well, it stops with you, right? It's a beauty and also potentially the curse of the role. We feel the same. We've got a team of 50, and so if something goes wrong, we have an article go out every day, for example. If an article doesn't go out, it doesn't sit right with us. I think we're like 70 days streak now of getting articles, 60, 70 days, something like that, of getting articles out every day. But if one doesn't go out, or sometimes you'll see me and Norman trying to get other ones together really quickly or something like that, because as you said, your team can do as much as they want, but because you're at the top, you have to make sure stuff gets done. And leaning on your team, I'm sure, and leaning on committee plays a part in it as well, right? Would you say your committee, you wouldn't be able to do it without your committee, I'm guessing is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, for sure not. There's so many different responsibilities. I mean, there's a committee for a reason. We definitely can't do everything ourselves. Yeah. And even that, we have our own specialties, so do they. They're good at what they're doing, we're good at what we're doing. And we just make sure each other leverages on that.
Perfect.
So,
Like, for every single stage of the event, there is so much of the committee involved. We have our own speakers representative, or we have someone who can support with our marketing, or someone who can actually support with booking the rooms and event logistics. There's so many people involved in a process, and we definitely can't do it ourselves. That's why we're thankful for a committee who enjoy what they do, and and they let us give us a stage that allows us to really perform and give them the best results in return.
Amazing. So penultimate section for the show now, which is genuinely just about the conference and in 2026, and what makes it different from other events students could attend, other conferences, and maybe other iterations of the NEFS conference as well. So the conference really it's become a major fixture outside of London. We spoke about this in our group chat before we come in here today, and the call that we had as well. But from your both perspective, what has enabled it to scale to this level over time? How have you managed to get it to this stage beforehand?
I think the successes of the years prior. So initially it started with Maya, who was the president from 2023 to 2024. She did the Women in Finance Conference. That was the first one that was greatly successful, amazing speakers who came. And from that, Benedict, who was the president the year after, scaled it to a 2-day conference with a Women in Finance Day and also a General Finance Day. And the main thing was a diversification of different panels and speakers. So I think something we mentioned previously, it was that how finance is so diverse. It's not just investment banking and consulting. There's private equity, there's private banking, wealth management, things like that. So it gave the opportunity for students to get to know the different areas of finance, and it's really great for especially first year students who don't know what they want to go into. And then from that, we wanted to make sure we scale it even wider. So I think it's all about the growth, right? So from a 1-day conference to 2-day, now this year, it's a 2-day conference, but we're inviting students from across the country. So there are students coming from the southwest, from London, from north, from Scotland. It's a wide range of students that all come together. So even the networking between each other is hugely important, and you benefit from that so much. One thing I think differentiates us is that every speaker is there to help the students. They've all been there before. They were a student at Nottingham or another university, and they know what it's like to be going through the application cycle. They know what it's like to be, 100 applications deep and not getting a role. But now they are at a role, either investment banker at a top investment bank, or they're in global markets, or they're a quant trader, right? They understand the process, and they're here to help and share their own experiences. What really differentiates us is that we bring together all these diverse panels, but also there are other things, like we have our own careers tables, we have our own selected breakout rooms. There's so many different aspects to it that all come together for the event. I think the aspect of having the day one being the Women in Finance Day is hugely important. It really brings together, and like you mentioned when we talked about it, is like the network that you build from that is amazing.
I guess to ask more about the backbone behind it and all this work you're doing, pitching to speakers, I assume, and then trying to invite them on. So how is that? I mean, because of course it's a major conference and you've got some big names lined up. So
the main thing is when outreaching to people, kind of outlining what the conference is and giving them as much information as possible, but in a condensed way. Because you don't want to just say, hey, would you like to come to this conference on these dates? Are you available? They're not going to say anything to that. It doesn't matter how well they even know you. They don't know what they're coming to. So you need to kind of have a really great message to them to pitch an idea where they understand what they were in a similar position to you. They have a great understanding of the industry. There's a big diversification of speakers, from analyst to partner. We can't send the same message as well to a partner that we are going to send to an analyst that we know as well. So it's kind of just varying up your message to different people, pitching it in a great way, but also outlining what they're going to do at the conference in an understandable and digestible way.
The main thing is that you're pitching the conference, but you're also pitching yourself. At the end of the day, you're the one that's going to be on a call with the speaker and have to convey the message, right? You're the middleman. So how can you pitch yourself and how can you pitch the society to someone who doesn't even know about NEFS, for example, or doesn't know much about the University of Nottingham? How can you really set ourselves apart from everything else? So I think what we do so well is we have this big student network, but also away from that is like we have really great people like Misgana or our speakers heads who can really pitch to these speakers and bring on some really big hitters that we have coming into the year.
Which is more impressive as well, since like you're so far away from London and everyone knows, like London's being kind of the hub of the UK for finance, and you've got your unions in London, they could easily get a speaker in, then they could go back to work, but then putting someone, 3 hours away from Nottingham is really impressive.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one of the questions I had was, we spoke about the society and now we've spoken about the conference. How do you think the conference fits into NEFS's wider mission across the academic year? Why is it such a staple, and how are you going to maybe build off it and maybe even evolve it into next year as well? Ms. Khan, I'll give that to you.
I think because it's so much all in one, I think that's the brilliance of it, where a lot of students may not have a lot of time during the year, especially it's after exams as well. So people are kind of stressed out, they're tired, they don't want to do anything. But having a conference where everything's all in one across 2 days, where it's recruitment, networking, networking with other students, I think that's a really great thing that other people may not have the opportunity to do. Meet a lot of students in a similar position to you, lean off each other in application processes. It's something that's really fantastic about the conference. And yeah, having all of that in 1 or 2 days is something that is unmissable in my opinion.
Yeah, fully agree. I said penultimate section, that was a lie. This is the penultimate section now. So why should students actually attend the NEFS conference, right? So instead of talking to us, we're going to let you talk to camera and we'll go either question and take it in turn. So Haaris, we'll start with you. So for students listening and viewing this podcast who are considering attending the NEFS conference, why should they actually make the effort to be there, especially if they're coming from outside of Nottingham?
Sure. So I think, for me at least, as a student last year, being involved in the conference was hugely important to me. I heard from speakers, we heard from last year, the head of private credit at Ares. You hear from these real big hitters and you build up so much understanding of their industry and you build up understanding of what you want to go into. I learned so much about consulting but also investment banking on the same day, and that really built up my understanding of, is this what I want to go into, or do I actually want to go into trading, for example, right? And the people I met on the day as well, they are now some of my brilliant contacts. Like I speak to them almost every day. You meet so many like-minded individuals who want to work to be in the same place as you, and you really support each other and uplift each other. Yeah. There is so much more to the conference than just the panels. Being able to speak to the recruiters on the stalls, or being able to speak on a one-to-one basis with some of these real industry leaders, right? That's what I really think differentiates the conference from any other NEFS event or any other just speak evening. It's a 1 or 2 day compact thing which gives you everything you need to understand where you want to go in the future. And that's what I think differentiates the conference from every other event.
Yeah, that was very good. It almost sounded rehearsed. That was very, very good. You can ask the next one, Naman.
Yeah, no, that is amazing. But then I guess one question I want to ask then is, who is this conference for? Like, is it for someone who's already got the knowledge, or is it for someone? The floor's yours.
The conference is for everyone who wants to enter finance, whether you have a summer secured already, whether you're a first year, a master's student, not really sure where they were going to go. Something really amazing about the finance conference is that it's so diverse with who you can speak to, whether that be partners at a firm, analysts, incoming graduates, recruiters as well. The opportunity to speak to so many different kinds of people in one setting is something that's not really an opportunity elsewhere. And also the chance to get to know where you want to go into finance. Because even I've spoken about in interviews or understood myself that whether I actually want to enter in a certain industry, knowing that if something is not for me, I can have the opportunity later on in the day to speak to someone else who is in another different area and get these exclusive insights I can't get anywhere else. And the chance to speak to people about it in one day in a setting where it's not really offered elsewhere is something that I definitely would recommend for.
Yeah. Again, very, 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 very good answers. And the final question of this section before we move on to the final 3 questions we ask to every guest is to both of you. So if people want to learn more or get involved however they can, or just attend, where should they be looking and what should their next step be to attend the conference? That's to whoever wants to take it, or both of you.
First of all, I'd say get your tickets first, right? Yeah, and that's the really key thing. But also have a look at what we're posting on our TikTok or on our Instagram. See the kind of speakers. does the head of investment banking at MS, does that interest you? Or does a quant trader at DRW interest you? You know, like, do these people, and do you think you're going to learn from these people? And also, do the firms attending, is that somewhere you want to aspire to work for, right? So look at what does the conference actually offer you, and it's about how can you use the conference to build upon after that. So is there a certain speaker who you really want to learn from, or is there a certain recruiter or a certain speaker at a table who you think, okay, I can speak to them and build up a network off them, right? Or is there a certain keynote who you think their insights are going to be incredibly useful when I want to apply for the firm going forward?
Yeah. Absolutely, and obviously to our viewers and listeners, everything will be linked in the description, and where to get your tickets, where to learn more about NEFS and the conference. But to our regular listeners, they know that our final 3 questions that we ask for every guest is coming up next. So Naman, I'm going to let you kick off with them actually.
Yeah, so of course, I think this is a nice question to, kind of smooth our way in. So, I mean, I know you guys are students, but looking back on your continuing career journey then, what are you the most proud of?
I think I'm most proud of, for me, I think now being in a leadership role, I think I'm most proud of seeing the impact I've made on people's, and helping them, right? Like being able to mentor people, or people like to reach out and help even with a CV or they have an interview coming up. I think, you feel really good inside about you when you help someone and you can see they've landed that spring week, or they've landed that internship, or they landed even a division in NEFS. That's what I'm really proud of. I'm really proud of seeing how my impact on my impetus, maybe that's only one call or a couple of messages, how that's had such a big impact on people's careers. And I hope, people continue that chain going down the line, right?
Yeah.
Maybe they then help someone, and that kind of builds on. I'm really, really grateful to have this opportunity to do that, right?
I think the whole fact that my goals have constantly changed and my goalpost has constantly moved. So like at the start of first year was, I need to just get into one division, let me just get into one. Yeah. And then it was like, let me just get like a spring or something. And then it was like, let me just convert that. Like my goals constantly changed, and I'm really proud of that. How I've, just looking back on that, like within a year and a half, how much I've personally accomplished, not only with like my own career goals, but personally as well. Yeah. It's something that I'm proud of and didn't really expect to happen when entering university.
For sure. Next question, penultimate question of the show. So if you could give your younger selves one piece of advice, what would it be? You can choose whatever age. For students, they normally go for like just before university, but it's whatever you want. And Misgana, we'll go with you to kick that off.
I think speaking to as many people as possible. I kind of had the idea of I don't want to waste people's time, or I don't want to ask silly questions, but really if you don't ask them now, you'll ask them later. So it's better to know the answer now when you have more time. So it's literally speaking to as many people as possible, getting to know as much information as possible, and yeah.
I think I could mimic that advice. I think, like you said, I asked the silly question. Asking the silly question is how you learn. There's no other way to learn, right? People will speak to you on a call, or they'll message you because they want to help. So don't be afraid to ask these silly questions, or don't feel like you're being stupid for asking something that they know, right? Remember, these people they might not be seasoned industry veterans, but they might have the experience that you don't have. So ask what you really want to know, and ask, don't be afraid to ask questions. I think asking questions is how you learn at the end of the day.
For sure. Don't be afraid to ask a question, but don't ask the same question twice, for sure, is a caveat to that. Naman, final question is from you.
Yeah, 100%. I guess I think this will kind of wrap up the episode nice as well. So Haaris, I'm going to stick with you for this, and of course we'll go over to Misgana, but what is the biggest takeaway you want people to take away from your story, and like from you, the person you are from firstly, like what do you want people to take away from that story?
I think taking away from my story is about growth. Like we mentioned before about rejections, waking up to rejections, it's never a nice feeling, but it's about how can I grow from that and how can I move forward. So like I can reflect back to a year ago today. I'm a completely different person in terms of how I even convey myself, or how do I go about myself in a professional sense. So being able to look back on yourself and be proud of the growth you've had, I think is hugely important. And then now look forward to see, like I mentioned, goalposts. What is your goal? Like, I'm really thankful to have landed the placement at Lazard, which is something that I'm looking forward to. But now, what's the next stage from there? Always think about what is your stage after that. You've achieved something, and now what's next? So it's a story about growth, and don't let the rejection emails get you down.
Yeah, for sure. And final answer of the show, Misgana.
I mean, for me personally, I feel like I've achieved a lot, but like if I was someone else, I don't know, in my opinion, I'm like, I haven't achieved that much. I
Yeah.
don't know.
Yeah.
It's just me personally, I think, oh, I've done this, but I don't really think I have.
Yeah.
It's a good question. I think, to be honest, it's what I think someone should take away from my story is that kind of anything is really possible. And if you want to do something, just try it out. If you aren't cut for it, that's okay. You'll face that rejection. There's another opportunity elsewhere. Yeah, to be honest, I really don't know.
No, that's a good takeaway to have. And I think we just like to wrap up the episode like that, but there's been so much gold nuggets from both of you across the episode. And that was the final question. I mean, I'm really speechless about an episode, but this was a really good, I'm going to watch this back with a notepad and pen, I think. What about yourself, Naman?
Yeah, no, 100%. I mean, from both of you personally, you seem like hardworking people, and of course, the work that you're putting into this conference as well, it seems interesting. Of course, when we're going to attend next year, then hopefully it's going to be insight for everyone.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is just to kick off our partnership. So for our viewers and listeners, keep an eye out for more content from us. But as usual, thank you so much for watching. So please do show us some more love on our social media channels. We're on Instagram, TikTok, as well as NEFS. Do check the description whether it's audio or video to hear more about them. Get your tickets for the NEFS conference, and we'll be there as well if you want to meet us with our podcast studio interviewing some of the speakers as well. But as usual, we'll see you next time for the next episode of the Smart Money Show. But until then, please do take care and stay tuned. Thank you.